Grizzlies fans, for the fourth and final time, the Grizzlies will take on the San Antonio Spurs tonight. It's at 7 p.m. First half of a back-to-back. They'll be back in Memphis tomorrow to take on the Warriors. So for today, joining us, Noah Magaro-George, one of our favorites, back to talk about the Spurs. How you doing today?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm really excited for this matchup. I appreciate you bringing me on, and I'm ready to go.
All right, my first question for you is a simple one. If you were to look at this matchup, Noah, the Grizzlies are third in the West. The Spurs are 14th in the West. It looks like this could be a game, where the players either walk in and don't take their opponent seriously, or they walk in and they can kind of overlook it because they have the Warriors tomorrow. But then I looked at the Spurs we dove in a little bit. They're coming off an overtime win against Dallas. They beat Denver exactly 1 week ago today. Why is this team not a team that you can overlook?
I think that honestly, and this isn't meant as any disrespect to the Spurs, but I kind of think it's the same with any bad team. I mean, we saw the Hornets win against a playoff team a few days ago. We saw the Houston Rockets beat the Boston Celtics. Everybody in the NBA is really, really good. I mean, compared to even your best basketball or overseas players. So if you don't take anyone seriously on any given night, you're going to get beat. So that's kind of what I think is the case here. And also the Spurs, even though, they don't really have anything to play for, they really like to, go out there and leave everything out on the court, right? They play with a lot of pride. So, if you're not going to bring it, they're going to bring it every night. They're not very good, but they're going to, go at you for 48 minutes.
Yeah, that is a very pop-led team type mentality. There's always going to be effort there, and this team does play really hard. Now, although the Grizzlies have won all 3 games, all of them have been close. The first one was a 2-point game in overtime. The second 2 were 6 and 8. None of these games have been blowouts by any means, and the Grizzlies have had a number of blowouts this season. None of those have been against the Spurs. So let's talk about what to kind of expect, I guess, in this game, because offensively, it's 1 and 2, the teams in the league in points in the paint. They both play quick pace, fast break points. They're both top 10 or top 5 in the league, rather. But defensively is where I think things kind of crumble. Is that rude? The Grizzlies are
no
defensive rated team since All-Star. The Spurs for the whole season, they're ranked dead last at 30th. What's going on that end?
I think they just have a lot of young players. I mean, you look at their roster, it's the youngest roster that Pop has ever coached in his 27 years in San Antonio. And usually young players are still figuring it out on both ends, but especially defensively where you've got new teammates, new terminology, new schemes, where colleges play almost exclusively zone. You have, that's not the case in the NBA. So that, and to be 100% honest, this team doesn't have great defensive personnel. You've got a few guys who are standouts, but even a guy like Jeremy Sohan, who I think a lot of people rave about his defense, even he is allowed, his opponents, at least in man-to-man situations, to shoot above 52% this season. He has those flashes of brilliance. A lot of the guys do, but it's the consistency, right? It's just not there. The attention to detail is not there. And I think that's just has to do with youth, right? I mean, it's going to happen. So I think that's the biggest difference between a team like the Spurs and a team like the Grizzlies, who are clearly an elite defensive team.
Yes. And hey, nothing wrong with youth. The Grizzlies were there a few years ago, and that's what happens in the league. I want to talk about the last couple games, simply because the personnel has changed a little bit. The Grizzlies tonight will be without Steven, Brandon, and Ja. And in that last game, which was beginning of January, it was Ja who had 38 points. It was Steven who had 11 points and 18 rebounds. Keldon Johnson for the Spurs had 24. Trey Jones had 22, 6 and 6. So there were 7 guys who had double digits for the Spurs in that game. And the Grizzlies won by 8 on the back of Ja Morant having 38 points. He's obviously out tonight for a few more games. What do you expect in terms of offense? I talked about how these two teams score, but it seems like this could be a game where the Spurs have a little extra oomph in them, knowing that some of the personnel for the Grizzlies are just not there.
Yeah, I know the Spurs are also fairly shorthanded, right? I mean, not that Kim Birch has played at all, but he's not playing. Charles Bassey fractured his patella, so their backup center is gone. Oh. I think Romeo Langford is also out tonight. They also have Devontae Graham, who was a trade deadline addition, out tonight. Like, they have a lot of guys out. So, you know, I understand that the Grizzlies are shorthanded. Not having John Morant and Brandon Clark and Steven Adams, who are instrumental to their success, is a big deal. But honestly, I think the Spurs have just got to continue to do what they've done all season, where it's next man up mentality. They've had 12 guys on this roster miss at least a 5 stretch of games, like multiple times this season. So they've just been banged up all year, and they're not that good even when they're healthy. So again, it's just next man up mentality. And for them, it's been the 3-ball. Like, surprisingly, that has been the thing recently that has really kept them in games. They're shooting 40% on almost 36 attempts over their last 5 games. And they've been, for the season, 25th and 25th in volume and efficiency from 3. So that's a huge spike from them, right? That's a huge spike. So I kind of think if they can knock down the 3-ball, if they can stay aggressive, you know, getting to the rim and kicking it back out to shooters, that's going to be their key to success. Now, you know, whether the shooters knock those down, that's a different story, because, you know, we know what Doug McDermott brings to the table. We know what Devontae Graham can do, but he's out. Devontae Graham is not going to play tonight. Doug McDermott, you know, it depends on his defense. Some nights he's going to play 15 minutes. Sometimes it's going to be 30. So who else is going to knock down threes? You know, is it going to be Keita Bates-Diop? Is it going to be someone like Sandro Mamukelashvili? Like, these are names that Grizzlies fans probably don't care about or even know, you know, exist maybe, but they're important to the Spurs, right? So next man up mentality. We'll see who shows up, but at least Keldon and Devin will be there, right? Those are their 2 big guys, and they're going to be looking for big games from them as well.
That's exciting. We love a couple 3-balls. I mean, we want Desmond Bane to hit a couple too. So let's just have that for everyone. One of my last things that I want to ask you about is, this is the first time we're going to play the Spurs without, and I hate to say this, but Jakob Poeltl, who honestly, if Ja was playing and Jakob was still on the team, it would be like, obviously we want that because Ja continues to dunk on him every time and then talk about it, which is so funny. Who's guarding JJ tonight?
That's a good question. So does Jaren Jackson mostly play center right now that Steven Adams is out? Is it like Santi Aldama at power forward, or is it like...
we go 4 or 5 depending on the lineup.
I would assume they're going to stick Zach Collins on him.
Yes.
Or they may put Jeremy Sohan on him for a little bit too. But I mean, I think both of those are tough matchups. I think I'd rather see Jeremy Sohan on him because he's going to try to get under you and get under your skin and be annoying. Yeah, exactly. But that's a good question. I don't know who they're going to throw. It really has been such a like mishmash, hodgepodge lineup for the last like 2 months that, you know, whoever they throw out there, it's probably going to be a surprise. Like, even again, like Sandro Mamukelashvili, who most people probably don't know, he started for the Spurs against the Mavericks. Like, they are just so shorthanded. So whoever guards whoever, it's probably going to be a little bit of who is that? So I wish the Spurs the best of luck, but it's been a tough one for them recently.
Oh, what's not tough though is that we do get to see Tre Jones and Tyus Jones going head to head again, and obviously Tyus is going to get the start today, which is really exciting. I remember the first time that they started against each other in their NBA career was just earlier this season here in Memphis. So I'm going to choose that as my matchup to watch tonight, simply because they're going to have a lot of minutes together. And they have all, like, both of them have had good 3 games against each other. Tre is averaging 17 points per game against the Grizzlies this season. Tyus a little over 15. And who doesn't love a little brotherly love, especially during March Madness? This is like, I literally said brotherly love. Wow, I didn't even mean that, but with 2, like, that's just, it's a perfect matchup for tonight. My matchup comes from my heart a little bit. I want to know your matchup to watch for this evening.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I'm excited for that as well. I think for me, I really want to see Desmond Bane and Devin Vassell go head to head. You know, they're not super similar players, but I believe they came from the same draft class. They've had kind of both a glow up this season, if you will. So I'm excited to see them defend each other, go at each other, shoot the 3-ball, maybe put the ball on the floor a little bit. Cause I think that's something that they've both shown. Like, I think a lot of people were, they're a little bit just 3-and-D players. And then this season they came out and people were like, oh yeah, they can put the ball on the floor. They can score. They can go create their own bucket. So I'm really excited for that matchup, but I like the Tre Jones and Tyus one too, because that's always fun. It's nice to see brothers go head to head.
Brotherly love. Oh my goodness. We got to get out of here. Noah, thank you so very much for the last time this season. Thank you. It was so lovely to pick your brain. I love hearing your perspective about the Spurs.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Grizzlies fans, we are back to normal times. Tip-off is at 7 p.m. today. You can catch us on Bally Sports Southeast and the Bally Sports Plus app.